Good morning, everybody. Today is going to be our first day talking about setting up trig ratios. So there's going to be some things that we need to review real quick from geometry. Hopefully you remember the phrase SOHCAHTOA, where sine of a degree is equal to O over H. Cosine of a degree is equal to A over H. And tangent of a degree is equal to O over A. And what O, A, and H and all that stand for is basically if you have a right triangle, and let's say this is the angle x degrees, whatever it is, right? You would say, okay, the hypotenuse of this triangle is always this side that's directly across from the 90-degree angle. So that's your H, stands for hypotenuse. Then you say, okay, the O stands for the opposite side. So the side that is opposite of the degree measure, x degrees, is right here. So that stands for O. And the side that is adjacent, that's what A stands for. Adjacent to x degrees is A. I actually recommend too, when you're doing this, actually label every picture with OH and A. That will really help clarify some things. But then also, I usually label the hypotenuse first because I find that easier, and then the opposite, and then adjacent. That tends to help me out personally. So kind of a review from geometry. If that's something you don't 100% remember, hopefully as we're going through this lesson, things start coming back to you. But don't forget, you can always stop in for office hours, and I can clarify a little bit more. So find the sine, cosine, and tangent ratios of each of the acute angles in the following triangle. Express each answer as a ratio, meaning as a fraction. So don't actually find what the number is. So here's a new vocabulary term. It's called a reference angle. The reference angle means what's the angle that we're talking about, because based on which angle we're working with, O, H, and A could be different. I mean, technically the H stays the same, but let's do an example together to show you what I mean. So we're looking at angle A, which is this guy right here. Okay, so let's label our O, H, and A just to keep things consistent. So H is this 8.06. O is the 7 because it's opposite of that angle. And then the adjacent side is that 4. So when I say what is the ratio that sine of angle A is equal to, well, sine is SO for SOHCAHTOA. So sine is equal to O, which in this case is 7, over H, which in this case is 8.06. Okay, try to do the next two, cosine and tangent, and pause the video, and then unpause it when you're ready to see the answers. So cosine is ca, so that means it's equal to A over H. Tangent is toa, so that's equal to O over A. Okay, so here's how this changes. I'm going to switch my color here because what changes is when we change to reference angle B, now some things are going to change for sure. So now we're looking at this angle measurement, not this one. The H is still going to stay the same. That doesn't change. But notice how my opposite side is now the 4. And my adjacent side is now the 7. That's what switches up. So if you have different colors you can use or things like that, I would really recommend it. You can also, I've seen students redraw the triangle and relabel everything. Sometimes that helps too. So try these three, doing kind of the same thing we did with everything you see on the screen in blue, and then pause the video and unpause it when you're ready to see the answers. All right, so sine of angle B, that's O over H. Cosine of angle B is A over H, so 7 over 8.06. And tangent of angle B is 4 over 7. Couple things to notice just in general, especially if you're taking pre-calc next year. Notice how the sine of one angle is the same thing as the cosine of the other angle. Kind of interesting. And vice versa. Okay, and then also tangent of the two angles just kind of flip-flop. They're like the reciprocals. So just a pattern. If you're not taking pre-calc next year, you don't have to worry about the pattern too much, but just something I thought I'd bring up. Use a calculator to approximate the given value to 3 decimal places. Note, which mode should we be in? So here's what I mean by mode. When you are on, whether it's a graphing calculator, scientific, there should be a button where you can go into mode, and there should be 2 options. So on my graphing calculator, I literally hit the button that says mode, and the third option down, right now my calculator is highlighted for radian. Look at these questions they're giving you, I want to be in degree mode. So I'm going to scroll down and hit enter on degree so that when I type these in, I'm good. Okay. You should see on your calculator, there should be a sine button, S-I-N, cosine, C-O-S, and tangent, T-A-N, right next to each other. If your calculator does not have those three functions, make sure you download that free graphing calculator and use that, because you are going to need to have a calculator that has those three functions available to you. So I just literally type in sine, and I see SIN left parenthesis. I type in 67, close the parenthesis, and I end up getting 0.921. It did say to go to 3 decimal places, so I rounded a little bit. All right, cosine of 15, I get 0.966. Tangent of 45, I get exactly 1. So for number 3, use the calculator to approximate the given value, but which mode should we be in? Now look at these guys. Okay, this is different. These look like radian degrees, right? So now I need to go back into mode, and I need to switch back into my radian setting. So I'm going to type sine of, and I'm going to put in a separate parenthesis, 3 pi divided by 4. And I end up getting, if I round to 3 decimal places, 0.707. So let's do cosine of negative pi over 6. I get 0.866. Tangent of 2 pi over 3. I get negative 1.732. Okay, so remember, if you're struggling with how to type it in, stop by and see me during office hours, and you can even show me what kind of calculator you're working with, and I can clarify that for you. All right, not only does trig use sine, cosine, and tangent, but they use these 3 other guys as well. So I'm going to use my highlighter to kind of help you out. So basically, all we've learned so far is sine, cosine, and tangent. However, starting in this class and moving forward through calculus, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, right? There's such a thing as, this is called cosecant. Cosecant is the inverse of sine. So it's kind of like h over o in a sense. Cosine goes with this thing called secant, and tangent goes with this thing called cotangent, okay? So for example, if you look down at the bottom of the screen, get my pen back here, if let's say sine of an angle is 12 over 13, that means cosecant of that angle is 13 over 12. It's the inverse of sine, so it kind of flips that ratio around. Cosine goes with secant, tangent goes with cotangent. Okay, so I know those are new vocabulary terms, but that's why in geometry, you spend so much time really focusing on these guys, so that all of a sudden when we introduce these 3 new guys, it's just taking that fraction and flipping it. All right, so use the given right triangle to identify the trig ratios given each reference angle. Well, they've made it easy on us. They're using angle theta for the reference angle for all 6 of these. So here's my H, my O, and my A. Here's the only downside, H isn't labeled. So I say, okay, well, if I have 2 sides of a right triangle and I don't have the third, I can use Pythagorean's theorem. So 8 squared plus 6 squared equals c squared. So 64 plus 36 is 100. And so this side must be 10. So sine is O over H, so 8 over 10. And cosecant, remember, is the inverse of sine, so that means this must be 10 over 8. Cosine is A over H, so 6 over 10. Secant's the inverse of that, so it must be 10 over 6. Tangent is O over A, and since cotangent's the inverse, I just have to use the reciprocal. All right, so pause the video at this point in time, try these questions real quick, and then unpause it when you're ready to see the answers. All right, so these first 6, it looks like A is the reference angle. So here's my H, my O, and my A. Again, I don't know this opposite side, so I'm going to use Pythagorean's theorem. Here's my right triangle. So 1 squared plus, I guess I'll use B squared, equals 2 squared. 4 minus 1 is 3, so this must be square root of 3 for that side length. So sine is over H, square root of 3 over 2. Cosine is A over H, so 1/2. Tangent is O over A, so square root of 3 over 1. So notice how I purposefully have put the ones that are inverses right next to each other so you can start getting the hang of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip each of these ratios so that it matches. All right, for the next 6, we're using angle B, and I feel like that's going to be really confusing to use another color because there's so much writing already. So I'm just going to erase all this stuff really fast and use a different color so I'm not screwing myself up. So here's reference angle B. 2 is still H, so that's fine, but now 1 is O and square root of 3 is A. So sine of reference angle B is O over H. Cosine is A over H. And tangent is O over A. And then again, notice how I purposely put the inverses with it. So we're just going to flip those ratios. Now, things like the 2 over 1 right here, you can just write 2. Square root of 3 over 1, you can just write square root of 3. I'm just showing you how they flip, that's all. All right, number 8 might be one more that's a little bit trickier. Find the exact values of the 6 trig ratios given that cosine of theta is 3 over 7. Well, here's the problem. I don't know. I know 3 is A, so I'm going to switch my colors here. So I know this is A over H because it's cosine, so ka toa. So I draw my triangle, and I'm just going to say theta is this angle. It doesn't really actually matter which one you pick, but that's just easier. So the adjacent side is this guy, so that's where the 3 goes. And the hypotenuse is 7. So I need to actually figure out first what that opposite side is, right? What's that side over there? So 3 squared plus b squared equals 7 squared. So it's going to be 49 minus 9. So this is going to be square root of 40. Which reduces, we can make that 4 times 10, or 2 root 10. Now I know that's kind of confusing, but we should simplify it if we can. All right, so sine of this angle is O over H, so 2 root 10 over 7. Kind of a gross ratio, but that's okay. So cosecant is the exact opposite. Cosine is A over H, which they already gave us, right? 3 over 7, so secant must be 7 over 3. Tangent is over A, so in this case, 2 root 10 over 3. So this is going to be 3 over 2 root 10. All right, you guys, I did that kind of fast. So remember, if you have questions, feel free to stop in during office hours so I can try to clarify, okay? Today is your next assignment, Unit 8, homework number 3. I'm labeling it Part 1 because usually I do this lesson in combination with what you guys will see tomorrow and give one homework assignment, but I want to make sure we're caught up with the required amount of assignments you guys need to have in the grade book for remote learning, since I didn't assign an official homework last week, okay? So go ahead and give that a try. Remember, you can print it out or do it on a separate sheet of paper. Take a picture and make sure to upload it to Classroom underneath that assignment tab so I can give you points. All right, good luck, you guys.